All my life, I've had people telling me that they believe in God. And a lot of people occasionally have asked me, do you really believe in God? What I come to see now is it's really the wrong question. The question should be, who is the God that you believe in? And this is much more complicated and subtle, because our image of God begins to form in us when we're very young, from our parents, from our teachers, authority figures. And so some of us, through no fault of our own, might have an image of God that really keeps us from experience the true mystery of who God is. So, for example, if my father, which he wasn't, was cold and distant and critical, well, that would influence how I come to see God. And many of us spend many, many years, maybe even our life, trying to experience the God of Jesus. Pope Francis recently talked about 3 qualities of the God of Jesus. He says the God of Jesus is always close, always merciful, and always tender. Wonderful words that you never hear in a philosophy class about God. God, the unmoved mover, which doesn't move my heart a bit, but a God who's tender, close, merciful, that makes a big difference. Let me give you 2 real-life stories about ways some people experience God. The first comes from Father Gregory Boyle, the Jesuit priest, in his book, Tattoos on the Heart. He talks about one of his Jesuit friends who lived in the same city as his father, and his father was dying. Nobody else in the family was even anywhere geographically close. And so this Jesuit priest asked his superior to be released from his duties so he could be with his father as he prepared to die. And one of the things that this priest's father used to do when the priest was a young child was read to him before he went to sleep. And the idea was, of course, that he didn't have to read real long, that the kid would fall asleep. And in one of the great changes in our lives at times is sometimes we become the parent for our parent. And so this priest would begin the custom that his father did for him at the end of the day, reading for his father, always with the hope that it would make him peaceful and calm, and he'd fall asleep. And as he would read to his father, one of the things that he started to pay attention to, he'd be reading and then look up to see if the old guy was asleep yet, and the old guy would be looking at his son with great delight, with eyes of love. And the priest would say, "Dad, you're supposed to have your eyes closed. You're supposed to fall asleep." And the father would say, I know. And he'd close his eyes, and there very quickly one would open. And he would continue to look at his son with eyes of love and delight. Last Saturday, a week ago Saturday, my grandniece celebrated her 2nd birthday. It was a big deal. All her uncles and aunts were there, her grandparents were there, her old priest uncle was there. And as guests arrived, her parents had found a great big blow-up of Elmo, who Rosie is totally fixated on Elmo. And so as anybody came into the house, she would greet them and then take them over and say, Elmo. And then she would show what we were supposed to do is hug Elmo. Everybody's cameras were out. Everybody was just in adoration of Rosie. I don't know if Rosie had a good time, but we had a great time, just delighting in this little girl. Those two stories are really experiences of how God delights in us. Consider that. It's hard to believe, isn't it? God would be delighted in me rather than wanted to say, how many times do I have to say to you, no, that's not God. God is close, God is merciful, God is tender, and as Dorothy Day once wrote, God absolutely can't stop God from delighting in us. Wouldn't it be great if most days we woke up with that kind of sense of God, that we are the apple of God's eye, that God is delighting in each one of us. Who God is for us matters. It makes all the difference in the world, in fact. This Wednesday, we begin Lent. We've worked through many Lents, most of us, and a lot of times we start out with great expectations and quickly fail, okay? When we think about another Lent, sometimes our past failures and our disappointments can block us. And yet, it is a season not of just to do a lot of self-help things like lose weight or not eat candy or not watch television as much or put my iPhone in a drawer for a week or something like that. No, it's a time of conversion. It's a time of coming in a deeper way to come and know this God of Jesus. This God of Jesus is always greater than anything we can imagine, and always greater than anything we've experienced, but who is delighting in us. Dorothy Day, who maybe one day will be a canonized saint, in her writings makes a distinction between what she calls being religious and being a disciple. A person who is religious does religious things. They go to church, they pray, they observe certain rituals and customs. A disciple is very different. A disciple is trying to know Jesus, follow Jesus, love Jesus. It's possible for all of us that we spend years being religious, but we don't come to know Jesus. Whatever you do this Lent, make it about coming to know, love, and follow Jesus. It can make all the difference in the quality of our Lent, in the life of our community. Many years ago, when I was pastor of St. Clement, on the Monday morning before Ash Wednesday, I would walk downstairs to where the counters were, and as a good pastor, of course, wondered, how did we do? But this particular Monday, right before Lent began, everybody was abuzz, because in the collection basket was an engagement ring. An engagement ring. And there was all kinds of speculation about the pain, the heartbreak that left somebody with nowhere else to go but throw the ring in the basket. I kept that ring on my desk all through Lent for two reasons. One, thinking maybe somebody would call and, hey, I mistakenly put my ring in your collection basket rather than my wallet. Didn't happen. But it was a reminder for me about how engaged can I be during Lent. We can do a lot of the right things with little of our heart in them. But how can we this Lent be engaged? Be engaged in seeking this God who can't take his eyes off us, or this God who is just finding us so delightful that we laugh out loud, or God laughs out loud in delighting in you and I.
Thank you for joining us for the celebration of the Mass today. It's a blessing that you are with us. Every broadcast of this liturgy goes out to hundreds of people and hundreds of people all over the world. It's been an enormous blessing. If you'd like to support this virtual ministry of OLPH, please go to our website. You can support this ministry by going to Give Central so that we can continue to broadcast the liturgy each and every week. Thank you for your support. Most of all, thank you for joining us today. God bless you. Greetings from OLPH.